You're listening to America House Spooky Podcast, our series of Halloween campfire stories to get you into a spooky mood. This episode story is entitled Jack-o'-lantern and read by Walter Braunohler. Keep listening if you dare.
Jack-o'-lantern. After a long day of unlucky hunting, I found myself in the middle of the marshlands for the night, without a flashlight or a lantern to guide my stumbling steps. So I settled beside a fallen log to rest until daylight. As I tossed and turned, I recalled the story my great-uncle told me about a ghost that had haunted the marshlands. There was once a man named Jack who was a nasty fellow. He beat his wife and kids and was an all-around bad chap. Jack got worse and worse as the years rolled by. But finally, Jack's body got so wore out that he died. He went up to heaven, but St. Peter refused to let such a wretched fellow in. Then he went to hell, but the devil barred the door as soon as he saw Jack coming and wouldn't let him in either. "Go away and don't come back," the devil told Jack. "How am I supposed to get back in the dark?" Jack grumbled. "Give me a lantern." So the devil threw a chunk of molten fire out to Jack, who took it for his lantern and went back to Earth, where he wanders forever through the swamps and marshlands of the earth, a bitter spirit whose only delight was in luring the unwary to their doom with his lamp. At this juncture of my musings, I happened to look out over the marshes and noticed a blinking light in the fog. "Is that you, Jack-o'-lantern?" I called jovially. "Jack, Jack, Jack," a voice whispered back. I was seriously spooked. I clutched my gun to my chest, the hairs on my arms standing on end. Had that been an echo of my voice? Or of someone out here with me? "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound brave and menacing. I waved my gun around. "Show yourself at once." "Jack, Jack, Jack," the voice hissed from a completely different section of the swamp. A light blinked on and then off. On and then off. Shudders ran up my spine at the sound of that ghastly voice coming from nowhere. I huddled up against the log, wanting something firm at my back. Suddenly, the story of the jack-o'-lantern didn't seem so funny. My heart was pounding so hard it made my chest hurt. I strained my ears in the silence that fell over the swamp. "Jack, Jack, Jack," the voice hissed from somewhere to my left this time. The light blinked on, off, on. I counted 10 heartbeats this time before it went off. The voice sounded closer. I held very still, my instinct screaming at me to hold my breath and not move until the menace had passed. The voice came again, far off to the right. "Jack, Jack, Jack," it hissed. The light came on, off, on. "It's moving away," I thought, relaxing just a bit, feeling safer. There was a long, long, long silence. Nothing stirred, not the wind in the grass, nor the frogs and the turtles in the water, not the crickets or night insects. "Jack, Jack, Jack," the voice hissed softly right into my ear, and I looked up into the glowing red eyes and twisted face of the jack-o'-lantern. I screamed and lashed out at it with my gun. I ran a few steps, tripped and fell over, knocking my head on a sharp stone. For a moment I saw stars, and I felt blood pouring from my scalp, but the jack-o'-lantern was right behind me. I had to get away. I rolled and fell into a deep pool. I plunged underneath the water, flailing desperately against rope-like grasses that tried to keep me down. My head finally burst out of the water, and I gasped desperately for air, treading water as best I could with my trembling limbs and aching head. I heard the creature laugh in the mist. "Jack, Jack, Jack," the voice hissed delightedly, and the light blinked on, off, on, right over my head, binding my dazed eyes as horror flowed through me and froze my limbs so I could no longer swim. For a long moment, the grotesque face and red eyes of the jack-o'-lantern loomed out of the mist before my petrified gaze. My head started to swim with pain from the bleeding skull. The evil face above me, lit by its bright light, whirled around and around, growing dimmer as my eyes started to glaze. I was vaguely aware I should keep swimming, keep trying to make my way to the edge of the pool, but the effort was too much for my suddenly heavy limbs. I barely noticed myself plunging down and down into the watery depths of the pool, too stunned by my injury to fight my way to the surface a second time. Then there was only darkness and silence, and a voice hissing in cold triumph. "Jack, Jack, Jack."
Park your brooms and sit for a spell, guys. This is American Spooky Stories podcast from America House KU. It's Anna here from America House and Walter from the US Embassy. Thank you, Walter, for getting us into the Halloween spirit. And now we will explore some of the vocabulary from the stories. But before that, I have a question for you. So there are different versions of this story about Jack-o'-lantern. Are you familiar with this one, or what is your favorite, or what other variations do you know?
I've never actually heard this story before. This is great. We always think of jack-o'-lanterns as just the carved pumpkins, but it makes sense that there would be a story that it comes from.
You don't know any other stories or versions?
No, not this one.
Oh, cool! You learned something. Okay. Do you have your favorite spooky story?
Oh, gosh. What would be my favorite spooky story? I like the Headless Horseman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so let's go through some of the vocabulary. I picked a few words and phrases and just want to ask you how to use them and to give more clear explanations.
Sure.
So in the beginning of the story, everything happened at marshlands, and there was the sentence, "I found myself stuck in the middle of the marshlands for the night." And we can get the idea that it's some kind of area, but can you explain what this word means?
Sure. Marshlands, I think, are a swamp. Some place this ground is very wet, very soft, very yucky. Maybe there are frogs that live there, snakes, and it's not a place that you'd want to hang out very long. Very cold if it's cold out, or just gross if it's hot out, and not a place that you could build or live for very long, I think.
It's a good place for a Halloween story.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely foggy in the autumn night, that sort of thing.
Let's take a closer look to the word wretched.
Mm-hmm.
It's spelled wretched, not wretched, right?
Right, wretched.
There was a sentence. Saint Peter refused to let such a wretched fellow in. What kind of fellow is that?
Oh, someone who's wretched he's awful. He is evil. He is no good. Maybe a little tired as well. Just has a kind of a gross angle to it, but just a no good person.
In my mind, somehow it's associated with the word cursed. Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, someone can be wretched and cursed. I think
miserable.
That's miserable. Absolutely.
The next phrase is a chunk of molten fire. The devil threw a chunk of molten fire out of Jack, who took it for his lantern. So this phrase is unusual. What does it stand for? A
chunk of molten fire, so like lava, or really hot rock, or something that glows. That molten bit, just something that should normally be very solid, but is so hot that it just drips. You couldn't hold it. So
just devil can hold it. It's like not a person can take it and throw it somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
No, normally. So it just describes something maybe supernatural and super hot.
Okay. Let's explore the next word, which is jovially.
Mm-hmm.
Is it you, Jack-o'-lantern? I call jovially.
So jovial, usually we think of happy, and kind of the way that a very fat man might laugh and ha 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 in a jovial kind of way, sort of like Santa Claus.
Is this word like a common to use, or
no? Not super common. I would say it's a fancy word.
So it can be just like joyful.
Yeah, joyful. Maybe with a tinge of drunkenness to it.
Okay. Thank you for explaining. The next one is menacing, and the example from the story. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound brave and menacing.
Menacing is trying to sound mean or evil, or in this case, I think mean or evil, but in a confident way. I'm going to get you, that sort of thing. That would be in a menacing way. So
I guess he tried to defend himself and sound threatening to the...
Right. He's trying to sound threatening. He's trying to use bravado. He's trying to sound confident, even though he's scared.
Okay. Moving forward, the next one is shudders. Shudders run up my spine at the sound of that ghastly voice coming from nowhere. So it kind of, you can get a sense of what this word means, but let's discuss it in detail.
Ooh, if you feel like, oh gosh, those are shudders. When your body physically reacts and tingles and gets a little, strange feeling because, again, you're scared, or there's fear, or or even if you jump into a really cold pool, maybe your body shudders, and You really feel it, all over your skin, especially your spine.
Is it like shaking?
Yes.
Shivering?
Mm-hmm.
Having goosebumps?
Yes. 100%.
So all of those things. When you see
Exactly.
something scary, you will have shudders.
Yes.
And from the same sentence, there was a word, ghastly voice.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have something to do with ghosts? Or no?
Yeah, I think it's probably similar. Ghastly. Again, yeah, I think there's an evil connotation to it, or something you wouldn't want anything to be ghastly. Ghastly could mean ugly. Ghastly could mean scary. That sort of thing.
What words can you describe like ghastly? In this example, it's voice. Can you say something about the person or the object or the abstract thing?
In this case, I would just say something that's scary, something that is unsettling, or something that is surprising, but in a bad way.
And the last few phrases from the one sentence. So the sentence from the story. For a long moment, the grotesque face and red eyes of the jack-o'-lantern loomed out of the mist before my petrified gaze. Let's discuss the phrase loomed out. It sounds beautiful, but what does it mean?
It loomed out. In this case, I think it just extended. It came out from.
So it just means to come out.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And petrified gaze. So the word gaze is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean?
Gaze is someone looking at you. Your eyes follow a gaze, or if I gaze at someone, I'm looking over at them or looking right at them, that sort of thing. And then petrified, of course, made into rock. So if a petrified gaze would be, again, something is terrifying, or it's scary, or very intense.
Is there a difference between gaze and look?
Yeah, I would say a gaze is sometimes like a short look, or a more casual look. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's definitely not a stare.
Mm-hmm. So something short.
Yeah, like
glance.
Almost like a glance. Mm-hmm. Yes, but maybe a little bit longer than a glance, but shorter than a stare.
Okay, makes sense.
And that's the nuance of the English language. Yeah.
Thank you, Walter, for sharing the story and for helping us with the vocabulary. Traditionally, I will read a Halloween joke.
Oh, great.
To end up our podcast. So, how can you tell if a vampire has a cold?
No, how?
Because of the coffin.
That is a terrible joke. I love it.
Yeah, I know. I also somehow love all the flat jokes. They're not funny, but there is some charm around them.
I mean, I'm a big subscriber to dad jokes. That was the perfect one.
Yeah, yes. That's exactly the one. Okay, so happy Halloween, everyone. Eat, drink, and be scary.
Thank you.